Hello there, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are off to Krasnoselskaya. We're doing the first stop on the Moscow Metro Roulette series here. And I said in kind of the instructions for how this is going to work, I said that I was going to show you the trip from my metro station to the final metro station, just to give you an idea of how that would work. What's interesting, though, is we're not actually going to be using my metro station exactly. See, behind me is metro station Lomonovsky Prospect, but Krasnoselskaya is on the red line of the metro, and if I just go a few bus stops that direction, I will get to metro station Universitet, which is also on the red line, which means it will be a straight shot for me. So for the first installment of this series, we're actually not going to be entering my metro station. We're going to be taking the bus a little bit and going to metro Universitet, but I guess I'll show you the way. Let's go.
Krasnoselskaya.
Okay, so we are here now. It's going to be a little bit loud, so that's just what you're going to have to deal with it. We're here now at metro station Krasnoselskaya. This is one of, I'm talking into the mic a little bit more directly. This is one of the first metro stations that was ever built / opened in the Moscow Metropolitan. The station in that direction, Komsomolskaya, and the station in that direction, Sokolniki. These three stations were part of the first run of the metro here. It's very simple design. I'm going to flip it around here. You can see we have these, I believe, 10-sided columns. These are made from a special type of marble that were brought in the 1930s from Crimea to, I don't remember the name, it has a special name, Bisk, something along those lines. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it. There are little markings like this one right here, which are fossilized remnants. So kind of interesting. In general, pretty simple. We got the yellow tile with the red. Gives a bit of a warm feeling to the station, even though you might, compared to modern stations, that's a little less well lit. And then it's a very simple middle platform with kind of white marble flooring. But we're gonna go ahead and get out of here because it's gonna be loud. So let's get out on the street. Obviously, as it's an older station, it is a little less handicap accessible. That's pretty common with a lot of the older ones, especially in the center. All right, and then we have the main staircase right here. Really love this. Got a bit of a memorial plaque to one of the first constructors there, female, which was not super unusual in the early days of the Soviet Union. Obviously, the whole idea of shedding the patriarchal preconceptions that perhaps existed under Tsarist Russia and creating a new Soviet individual. So, but she does have a plaque here. And then this mural here in the entrance, which doesn't have any information about it, oddly enough, and they've put an employment thing in front of it. This mural, which I love Soviet murals, this is dedicated, so during World War II, from this station, there was an armored train that got sent off to the front lines. I guess I should angle it up just a little bit. It was destroyed in the Kursk region. I don't remember the name of the battle, maybe just the Battle of Kursk. I'm not a big war historian, but yeah, really love Soviet murals. And it's kind of odd that they don't, maybe they do have a little bit of information if you follow the QR code. But let's get out. Should probably go out the exits. Okay. So, Krasnoselskaya. This is a good one to start with, not gonna lie. Before we go actually into the direction that we're gonna be headed in today, I wanna kind of go here to the corner of the street and point out one very important thing. One of the reasons that I actually really, really love this part of the city still to this day, and that is that it's super loud. No, but all things aside, the cables that cover this intersection. Now, most foreigners that you'll talk to do not remember, or at least the ones that are still here, do not remember that this is what Moscow kind of looked like for a very, very long time. You would have the trolley cables. As you can see over there, we got a tram that is still using them. That is the T2 tram. I believe the T1 tram comes through this direction as well. But in the past, there would be trolley buses, and I do think that there is well, maybe there was a trolley bus. The last trolley bus, at any rate, in the city used to be on this road. I think it still is, but I might be mistaken. I am a public transit nerd, but not so much. Anyway, not in this video, maybe not even the next one, but the Krasnoselskaya region, as far as I'm concerned, does continue over that bridge. We'll get into that a little bit more in the future, but today we're going to be focused more on this area back this way. We got a school excursion or a excursion of some sort. But I do want to point out that if we go in that direction, that is towards the center. Again, the next station is Komsomolskaya, but then after that would be Krasные Varota, which I made a video about last year, so you can go check that out. And then obviously in that direction, the next station is Sokolniki, and as we say here, that's in the direction of the oblast. But we're not quite doing that just yet. We're gonna go this direction. There's not anything super interesting, aside from one thing I almost forgot about, and I have to see if I can find it, so yeah. So the metro vestibule here at Krasnoselskaya is also kind of an interesting one. Obviously it is the original one, they didn't change it. They did cover up the windows, they did kind of paint over a bunch of stuff, but the design is the original one. And I want to point out one little feature here, which is pretty neat. I gotta get back a little ways. There it is, Metro. There are not very many of the original metro stations. This was one of the features that they had in that first set of metro stations that they opened, as again, kind of a way of letting people know that it was the Metro. I believe Sokolniki had the word put back onto it. But yeah, these are the original letters, the original construction, so I do think that is pretty cool. A nice little blast from the past. And they do have the name down there, Metro imna V.I. Lenina. So, okay, that aside, we're just gonna do a little bit of walking. There are a few things I wanna show. This first part of the region, I don't remember when I was talking about it, but a while back I was in this region. I have to come here once a year, but we'll get into that in a little bit more detail later. I do want to check something out. When I was looking at the maps, I kind of came across an interesting building, and I want to go check that out. But I don't know how long this video is going to be. I'm going to assume that what I came here to film today is actually going to be broken up into at least 2 videos. If I'm just walking and not having much to say, then I'm definitely going to edit some of that out. But I am going to try to, there's quite a bit to comment on here. It is a historical region, and yeah, so I do feel like I'm just going to be chatting a bit. And one thing I will call to, I guess, your attention, these are the city clinics, Maya Poliklinika, as you can maybe see there above the entrance. One of the things that I guess I would applaud Sabyanin for is they have done a very good job of updating the medical clinics, the public medical clinics here. Now, there are obviously still complaints with the medical system, but that's to be expected, you know, but at least they're doing something. So, let me just keep going on here. Oh, I guess I could probably tell you what Krasnoselskaya actually means. So, actually, I'm gonna hold off on that because they're cleaning the streets. Oh, goody. This is one of those things that they do. All right, it's just gonna be loud, so just, I guess, deal with it for a second. Okay, so as I was saying, Krasnoselskaya. Where does that name come from? Well, so the first mention of a settlement in this region is from 1423. But again, at the time, it would not have been, well, I guess it was Krasnoselskaya, sorry. I almost contradicted myself. But as I mentioned in a video, which I made in the past about Krasny Varota, right? You could check that out too. I already mentioned that once. Krasny in the past used to mean krasivy, which means beautiful. So the reason that this region was known as Krasnoselskaya is because there was a pond here that they thought was krasnaya, or beautiful, as we would call it today. And selo is just a Russian word for like a village or a settlement. So Krasnoselskaya is like a beautiful settlement. Yeah, this building right here. I don't know what it is. It's just a residential building. But when I was doing the street view, I caught the, I guess, decorative elements at the top, which I thought were a nice addition. It's kind of a weird little thing packed away here on a side street. So, also, I don't know why they painted it pink, but I guess somebody's actually thinking about it and taking a little bit of care of it because, well, some of these other buildings are a little bit more simple, although some of them are kind of colorful like that one there. Okay, that's really not what I came here to show. It's just one of those things where sometimes you get on Street View and you start looking at stuff, or at least I do, that's maybe a me thing, and I discover little things. I'm like, I've never seen that before, so I wanted to check it out. Figured I'd take you along with me. We're actually gonna go back this way right now, if I'm not mistaken, because we'll tell you about why I have to come here once every year. So, we're gonna, they clean the streets, they say, but then literally the next day it is filthy again, so I don't know. They got a budget to burn up, so they do. Okay, so all people who are residents or citizens of Russia have to have something known as OMS. I guess there's really not anything that's super interesting back here, so I can put it back on me. So OMS is обязательное медицинское страхование, or mandatory medical insurance. And for Russians, it's not a problem. You just fill out a form and you get it. You get put on the program. As a foreigner, it's a little more complicated, and used to be prior to the war, during COVID and all that stuff. We just went to a local, I don't remember which company I have, one of their local offices, and we just went in, signed some documents, and that was it. Since the start of the war, though, and I don't know if it's just coincidence or if that was a planned thing, at least with that one specific company, there's only one place that you can come and get a policy as a foreigner, and that is this building right behind me. And you have to do I was just here in February, I want to say, and you have to make an appointment in advance. But the funny thing is, I've done this 2 years in a row now, or 3. Every single time that we've made an appointment, there's nobody here, so I just don't really know what the point of it is. But anyway, a little personal history from all that, and I guess a little bit of information for what you have to do as a foreigner. Flipping it back around, we have a church here. Now, I don't remember the name of this specific church. I don't really care. It is kind of interesting, at least from an architectural point of view, right? Got a very squat dome up there. But we're going to talk a little bit more about this particular church in a little bit. Not because the church in and of itself is super incredible. I don't know, I guess we could go in. All right, I'll be quiet. All right, let's be quiet. We'll see if it's open. Would say a pretty standard church. If you ever wonder with videos and stuff that I do, I usually pass churches and I just don't go into them. They're all kind of like that. It's got a definite vibe. Love the the incense that they've got burning, the myrrh, or I can't even remember what it's called in Russian, blagovon, something like that. Anyway, nice smell, but the general vibe is always kind of the same. Yeah, anyway, architecturally, kind of interesting, but there's a little bit of history with it that we'll talk about later. Maybe not even in this video. Again, I don't know how much editing I'm gonna have to do, but I have a feeling that my little walk around today is gonna get split into 2 sections. Okay, now one thing, while we're here too, I can kind of elevate the camera a little bit, and we can sneak a view of that old building right there. Again, we're going to talk about that in just a second. That is another interesting little bit of history from this region, but unfortunately we can't go to it. In fact, you can't go anywhere near it, but we'll get as close to it as we can. This is one of those things. Also over here, I'm just like, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of things to talk about. Public toilets. This is kind of a rarity in Moscow, and I think there are things that you typically only find in older regions, but in a lot of places, especially, in older regions, I can think of one on the Boulevard Ring, obviously one here at Krasnoselskaya, and then there's another one that I can think of near Metro Leninsky Prospect, actually on Leninsky Prospect, and they're actual public toilets that you can use. They're free of charge, which is great because a lot of times in the city there aren't any free toilets, and not so much anymore, but in the past people would just, pee on walls or behind dumpsters. People still do that, obviously, but it's a little less common. But the other thing is now they have all of these like pay toilets that they put all over the place. Actually, when I did the internet outage video, I was talking about, or maybe not video, but anyway, you have to pay for it. And with the current internet outages that have been kind of appearing randomly in Moscow, there have been some issues with payments. Anyway, I'm just not a big fan of paying like 50 or 60 rubles for a stinky toilet that's not well kept up. Whereas these usually have a person down in there between them, because as you can see, I know I'm focused super on public toilets, but I think that's a really important part of city infrastructure. And if you don't have these things, then that's a pretty big sign. And I would say that the fact that the current city government doesn't do more to implement free city toilets and do something like that is, I don't know, it's kind of a negative, right? Like, everybody has to use the bathroom, just make it free. Don't charge 50 rubles for it. Anyway, you can see that they have these sort of curved stairs that go down. The men's toilets would be on that side, the women's on this side, underground. And then in the middle, they have a little special room for typically an older woman who sits there and goes in and cleans everything up every once in a while. So I'm actually gonna go check it out myself. So we'll be right back. Okay, for real, there was nobody else in there but me. Oh, you got the little window there for ventilation. But yeah, really nice, really simple. Again, I know I'm fixated on this, but I didn't even discover these things existed until like way too long after I'd been living here. So anyway, we're going to move away from the public restrooms, although I do think they are super cool and they got a good vibe, and because they're underground, they're cool in the summertime and they're not freezing in the wintertime. But that's, just kind of whatever. Let's talk a little bit about this historical building over here, which I think is probably a little bit more interesting for most people. That's a school, the brightly colored building across the street. And you can see, right, like this two-story building. There's a lot of historic buildings in this region. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but yeah, this is one of those regions, Krasnoselskaya. In that direction, if we go back the way we came and keep going, we get into the area of Baumanskaya. And, in the 19th century, there were a lot of merchants and other people who had come into wealth and who were not aristocracy. And they would build their houses and their various things up here. We can actually see like a wooden one up here. I don't even know what this building is, but I love it with the brick. But this, I'm actually gonna go in because it's open. I'm just gonna go in a little bit because I'm sure if I go too far. This right here is an old almshouse. I gotta get my notes out because I don't remember all of it. This is the almshouse in the name of Gier. It's a Swiss dude. But like I said, let me go ahead and pop my notes out here so that I'm not stumbling all over and I want to get things straight. So yes, this belonged to the Swiss consular. This whole building and the land, anyway, it was the Swiss consular. His name was Joseph Nikolaevich Gier. And anyway, yeah, he had quite a bit of influence and power here during Tsarist Russia. He was also involved in producing and selling vodka, so that might have something to do with it. And yeah, he died, and his wife gave the residence over to the city of Moscow with the sort of caveat that it be turned into an almshouse, for the poor, the elderly, the sick and disabled. Originally, it housed 60 people. But with time, they did expand it. And by the time of the revolution, there were 100 people using the almshouse's facilities. 50 men and 50 women. Now, I don't know what this other, definitely Soviet building is back here, but they're both in sad shape. Anyway, this was a pretty, oh yeah, this building, we're hoping that they fix it up and do the work that needs to be done to it. But anyway, this was a pretty luxury place to be, right? They had pretty comfortable furniture, they got nice bed linens, and most importantly, the people who were here, and not just the people who were here, anybody could come to the almshouse and they would get medicine and even free medical treatments, depending on what the situation was. Now, obviously during the Soviet Union, it did not get used as an almshouse. It was turned into various Soviet ministries. Maybe that's what this other building over here is. But specifically the almshouse, the Gier almshouse, the Gier almshouse maybe? I don't know, it's a Swiss last name, so I'm gonna fumble it anyway. During Soviet Union, this became the Ministry of Dairy and Milk Production, for example. But yeah, the exterior, honestly, not in the worst shape, right? Like a lot of the moldings and the arcs are holding up quite well. But the interior was completely wasted during the Soviet Union. Now, I don't know if you can see through the window, it's quite dirty and you can probably just see my reflection. It looks like they've completely ripped everything out of it. So maybe they're actually planning on redoing it. Obviously, this is a big undertaking. This is one of those massive buildings. Again, 100 people lived here at the time of the revolution. This is not a small residence or building of any sort. So for them to undertake a complete renovation of the inside, bring it up to modern standards, is going to require a lot of time and a lot of money. But I mean, again, just look at this thing. It's a beautiful building. It needs the love and attention, and honestly, the capital to be invested into it to make it what it was. I'm going to go around out front so we can get a better view of what it looks like from the front. I guess I can just kind of hold it up here as we go along. But yeah, this is one of those buildings that, and honestly, it's actually probably pretty good that I wound up, or the wheel chose Krasnoselskaya for us to go to in April, because as you can imagine, during the summer and into the autumn when the leaves are still on the tree, it's kind of hard to see anything. But yeah, there it is. Fantastic building. Like, look at the windows. The windows are great. Just like the different, the sort of honeycomb shape, or the elongated honeycomb shapes, or whatever you want to call that. And then the cascading ones up at the top. Just absolutely gorgeous building. Phenomenal. And there's a lot of stuff like that in this region. There's one of those regions where when I first started having to come here to get my OMS policy, I was just kind of amazed, because like on the other side of the street, you have this old wooden building, which I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know what it's connected to, but it definitely is old as sin. Definitely has seen better days as well, just like this one. But I do hope that they try to fix and save some of these buildings. Now, not all of the buildings in this region have received that treatment. In fact, later into this walk, and probably in another video, you will see a little bit more of that. I'll talk a little bit more about that in detail. But for now, yeah, I do hope that they manage to save and kind of keep the colorit of this specific region. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about, not this building, but I do want to show that too, because this is like a, I don't know, I'm just going to say Stalinist, because it looks very Stalinist in its architectural style. But I'm actually going to focus right on this goofy building right here. And it looks very, very silly. It looks actually kind of like just one of those dumb constructions that people maybe would have thrown together in the 1990s or the early 2000s. But that's not the case at all. This is actually a very, very old building. Again, let me check my notes. I want to say it's from 1932. It's not. It's from 1931. This is the Fabryka Kuchnia номер 2 Sokolnicheskого района. So, Fabryka Kuchnia, that is This thing that now houses a bank, decades ago, would have been a kitchen factory. Now what that means is it was part cafeteria, part food production. The idea is that in the early Soviet Union, to kind of get people out of the kitchen, a more technologically advanced society, that using these sort of kitchen factories, they would be able to free women up from housework and allow them to enter the workplace and kind of be on an equal level with men, emancipate them, get them in the factories as well, or building the metro, as I mentioned a little bit earlier ago. They were supposed to serve a few thousand lunches per day, but at the end of the 1930s, the government kind of decided that this specific model of doing things wasn't super effective, simply because it was, instead of having like a few massive ones in different parts of the city, it was a lot more logical to just put up smaller ones in different regions. Now, the facade obviously did not look like this. I don't know when this bank moved in here. If you go back to the street view, you can see in like the late 1990s, or no, probably early 2000s, they redid the facade. I mean, it does have a very Lushkov era look to it, and the and all that. But this is actually a constructivist building, and we're going to be talking a lot about constructivism in the Krasnoselskaya area. But I'm going to try to back up a little bit too, get like a more full view. But yeah, you can imagine, right? As a cafeteria, it would work pretty well. You got these big windows on the second floor. The first floor would be where most of the production is, but the second floor, especially when they built this thing back in 1931, you would not have had all of these very tall buildings around by. So you would have been up and elevated and would have a lot of sunlight. The windows have been changed too, so they were different. I do believe they opened to a larger degree too in the past. So yeah, anyway, one of those little buildings that you look at it, you probably don't think it's just a goofy bank building, but it's actually like almost 100 years old. And those kitchen factories that I was, like the whole story I was just telling you, there were a decent number of them around the city, but in terms of like the big ones, that was the 8th, I believe, that was open. It's also, I think, one of the last ones that was working. Although don't quote me on that last bit. Okay, now I gotta check my map real fast. We are, I believe, well, we're gonna cross the street regardless, so. And I'm gonna have to cut it right there. When I was out filming in the Krasnoselskaya region, I didn't actually think as I was going and plan where I could end separate videos. I just went through and filmed the whole thing from start to finish. So there are going to be these odd little transitions at the end of this series from time to time, at least with this first region that we're going to be in, Krasnoselskaya. In the future, when I go out filming, I'll try to do a better job of thinking or paying attention to the time and then coming up with a regular ending. But as it is right now, for the next few videos, you're gonna see me probably here on this couch or maybe outside somewhere, depending on what the weather is like. It's not super gray right now. Feels like it's -1 outside, so I decided it'd probably be better just stay inside, stay warm just a little bit. As I alluded to just a little bit ago, there are quite a few more videos in the works. I was out filming for 2 to 2.5 hours. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna use all of that necessarily, but there wasn't a lot of downtime. There was a lot to show, there was a lot to see in there, and I do think that ultimately what I want to do in this series and the whole idea behind this is to just walk around the city, show it. Not pick and choose things necessarily, but just sort of give you literally a walking tour, but one where there's some running commentary, some historical reference, and just stories that go along with the various regions that we happen to be in. Now, as I mentioned at some point in this video specifically, Krasnoselskaya has a lot of history. There are in the future going to be regions that we go to where they're largely going to be residential. There won't be as much to talk about. So this is also one of those specific regions where there is, right? Obviously, any place in the center is going to have this same runtime or situation as well, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. As it is, I also want to highlight the fact that in the first comment pinned below this video, there is going to be a series of links which will help you orient a little bit in the city. Now, I obviously understand where all of this is. I have a decent geographical knowledge of the city, all things considered, here in Moscow, but I'm assuming that most of you don't. So there will be links to Google and Yandex maps, depending on which one you prefer, depending on where you're at in the world. And one of the maps will show how I went from my metro station to the Krasnoselskaya metro station, and then the other one will show just the route that I walked once I got out of the metro. I'll be doing that for all of the future videos as well too. Obviously though, in future videos I probably won't be showing you the map for how I got to the metro station, because in the future ones I'll already be in the location. And yeah, I guess that's kind of all I have to add. Obviously the big thing, please, feedback would be great. This is the first one of these that I'm doing. Obviously I've already filmed most of it, so some of the feedback might be applied in a little bit further in the future, but things connected to some of the information that I'm sharing, some of the historical photos maybe that are in there as well too. If there are things that you liked, obviously let me know. And you know, do the whole YouTube stuff, like below the video, subscribe, blah, 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 you know how this works. And I'll try to improve this and make this as much of an enjoyable experience as you can. I honestly had a really good time filming this. This is one of those things that was an idea that came to me a while back, and I'm glad that now there's a chance to implement it and actually bring it into your viewing space. And like I said, I had a really good time making it, just going around and filming and walking and traipsing through these neighborhoods, some of which I was kind of familiar with, some of which you'll see in the next video that I was a little less so. So when the time comes, I'm ready to venture on to the next station, but again, that's a little bit in the future. As it is right now, like I said, there is enough material coming up where I do plan on putting these out kind of bi-weekly now. So today's Monday. If you're watching this the day that it comes out, I'm gonna put it out today. And then I'll have one ready to go on Friday. That's the plan. Kind of a staggered release schedule, but then that way there's a steady stream of them. And it also, I don't know, gives you something to watch and doesn't feel super disjointed if it's stretched out of a super long period of time. Anyway, like I said, do all the regular YouTube stuff. Gotta plug that one more time. Like, subscribe, leave comments. I am really interested in the comments this time around, so please, please, please do that. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed all of this. This has been Russia in Context. Thanks for watching.